Grandiose versus vulnerable narcissism. Two masks, one fragile self-image. Imagine two people. One walks into every room like they own it. The other seems quietly wounded, misunderstood. They look like opposites. The first walks into every room like they own it. They dominate conversations. They need to be the smartest, most successful, most interesting person there. Challenge them, and they don't just disagree. They make you feel small for trying. The second person looks completely different. They seem sensitive, misunderstood, quietly wounded. They tell you nobody ever appreciates them. Set one reasonable boundary, and they collapse, withdraw, or make you feel cruel for having it. One looks powerful. The other looks fragile. Different masks. Same result. Last time we looked at how narcissistic patterns form. Not simple self-love, but a defense system protecting the self from shame, rejection, and the feeling of not being enough. Either way, your life starts revolving around their emotional needs. Today, we look at two versions of that defense system: grandiose narcissism and vulnerable narcissism. Because not every narcissistic pattern is loud, and not every controlling person looks confident. Quick distinction before we go further. Traits are not a disorder. Confidence is not narcissism. Insecurity is not narcissism. No one can be diagnosed from a video. This is about repeated relational patterns, because the pattern matters more than the performance. The grandiose pattern: status, competition, entitlement, dominance. This is the person who appears entitled, dominant, status-focused, competitive, and certain. They may talk endlessly about their success, expect special treatment, treat ordinary feedback as disrespect. At first, it can look impressive, bold, decisive, like they have a story for everything. Confidence isn't the test. The test is what happens when you succeed. Tell them about a promotion. A secure person celebrates you, asks questions, lets your moment be your moment. This pattern does something else. They tell you why their achievement was bigger. They minimize yours, or suddenly go cold. That's the clue. It's not that they enjoy success. It's that your success can feel like their loss, because equality threatens the hierarchy their self-image depends on. Now raise a concern. Maybe they hurt you. Maybe they crossed a line. A healthy person can eventually say, "I see why that hurt you." This pattern attacks your credibility instead. You're too sensitive. You always create drama, until you're the one apologizing. If you become the problem, they do not have to look at themselves. Grandiosity can be shame-wearing armor. The vulnerable pattern: insecurity, rejection, self-criticism, emotional fragility. This version is much easier to miss because it doesn't always look arrogant. The person may be shy, self-critical, may talk openly about being rejected or mistreated, and they may genuinely be suffering. But suffering doesn't automatically make someone emotionally safe. Pain is not the pattern. The real question is what their suffering repeatedly demands from everyone else, often seeking validation, less through open dominance and more through emotional gravity, through lines like, "No one ever understands me," or "I'm always the one who gets blamed." Say you need some time to yourself or that you can't help tonight. Somehow, the conversation becomes about their pain instead. Different language. Same gravitational pull. One says, "Look at me. Admire me." The other says, "Look what you did. Show me I matter." You're reassuring them, explaining it again, softer this time, then softer again. That's how the dynamic pulls you in. Both patterns can make other people responsible for stabilizing the self. Here's where people get confused. They think vulnerable narcissism just means someone is sensitive. It doesn't. Sensitivity is not narcissism. Healthy sensitivity includes empathy. the ability to care about another person's pain, even while you're upset. The test is empathy, accountability, and room for your separate reality. Accountability can be escaped in two directions. The grandiose type says, I must be above you, dismissing you, attacking your credibility. The vulnerable type says, you must prove I matter, collapsing, demanding reassurance until you're comforting them instead. One pulls power through superiority, the other through guilt. Either way, the issue disappears. One person can switch masks. Grandiose and vulnerable aren't always two separate people. Someone can move between both. When they feel admired, powerful, in control, they may appear superior. When they feel criticized, ignored, or threatened, they may switch into victimhood. One moment they're above you. The next, they're devastated that you'd make them feel this way. That contradiction is the point. Confidence may be a defense against fragility, not its opposite. So stop asking which version is the real person. Ask instead, what happens to you inside the pattern? Do you constantly monitor their mood? Do you edit your truth to avoid a reaction? Do you feel guilty for ordinary needs? Do you spend more time managing their emotions than living your own life? First, return to facts, not their explanations, not the emotional storm, not the version of events that changes every time you bring it up. Just facts. What happened? What was said? What did you ask for? How did they respond? What repeated? Second, stop arguing inside their frame. A boundary is a decision, not a better argument. If they call you cruel for having one, don't spend an hour proving you're kind. Say, I understand you're upset. My answer is still no. If they attack your character, I'm willing to discuss the issue. I'm not willing to debate who I am. If it turns disrespectful, I'm ending this conversation for now. Third, stop trying to earn basic empathy. Care that only shows up when you're useful or agreeable isn't secure love. It's conditional access. Understand the wound. Refuse the role. You can have compassion without becoming someone else's emotional regulator. Understand the wound without becoming the bandage. Real intimacy has room for two people, two needs, two perspectives, two separate realities. It includes accountability. It includes repair. It includes boundaries that never become a punishment. That's what separates real intimacy from control. The mask may be loud. The mask may be wounded. But your job is not to fix it. Your job is to stay connected to reality. Watch the pattern. Protect your center. And remember, someone's insecurity, no matter how dramatic, painful, or convincing it looks, is not permission to control your life.